Sergeant Garland Woodrow Collier, U.S. Army 101st Airborne Paratrooper and native son of Coleman County, 25 years old when killed in action during World War II on October 5, 1944, has been accounted for by the Defense POWMIA Accounting Agency. His remains were deemed non-recoverable for over 78 years, but today we are here to celebrate Garland's return to be laid to rest with his parents. Welcome home, Garland. Your sacrifice, bravery, and heroism will continue to be lauded by this family for generations to come. Rest easy, soldier. Whitechapel welcomes you. Peace continue to be with you for now and always. Garland is my great uncle. He is the youngest brother in the Collier family of siblings, and my grandmother, my mother's mother, was one of Garland's older sisters. When I was a little girl, these two photographs were what I saw on my grandmother's tiny dresser next to her bed. And I always used to ask, who is this? And she would talk about, that's my youngest brother, Garland. And whenever she did, tears started streaming down her face. Garland was born in Novice, which is a little town north maybe of Coleman. I'm sure he was born at home. All the babies were born at home then, Ultimately, they ended up in Coleman, and I'm not exactly sure why. And I think they were all very close from what I understand. I mean, they all sort of lived in each other's back pockets, in this small 2 or 3 room little cabin. Yeah, I think they must have been very close growing up together and experiencing, life on the Coleman Prairie. At Coleman High School, he played football, he played basketball. He worked in various places and did odd jobs, around Coleman after he graduated from high school. Dee, his next oldest sibling, decided to go work in the copper mines located in Bisbee in southwest Arizona, not far from the border with Mexico. Garland followed him. Dee actually enlisted in World War II, and Garland did as well. Again, sort of followed suit with older brother Dee. His enlistment date was September the 1st, 1942, and Garland ended up being assigned to the 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment, PIR, and within that he was in the 3rd Battalion. And so he was actually the section leader of his small little machine gun platoon in most of his involvement when he actually saw action in Europe.
Many of you may have watched this famous series called Band of Brothers. And the Band of Brothers was about E Company, which was 2nd Battalion of the same parachute regiment. So if you ever watch Band of Brothers, you'll have a pretty good idea of what my uncle was doing in World War II.
He had 2 major parachute jumps, and one of them was on D-Day. I think he left England. I believe they flew off at like 1:30 in the morning on the morning of June the 6th, and they got to their drop zone near a little town called Carrington. Was wounded while he was in France. And so that was his first parachute jump experience on D-Day. The second jump, though, was much later. D-Day was June 6th. His second parachute jump was on September 17th, and that was part of Operation Market Garden.
Market Garden was put together with the idea that they were going to take the armored divisions and go into Germany through the Rhine at Arnhem in Holland. As everybody well knows, it did not succeed. In fact, they got as far as, I guess, Arnhem and were beaten back. My uncle was at this little town. His position was overrun, and he was killed in action at Opusden in Holland.
He was killed on October 5th. To this day, the Dutch teach their children about World War II, about the Americans' involvement, about the fact that the Americans helped to liberate them and help them retain their freedom.
The action was so bad that they were not able to collect our casualties. Out in Whitechapel, there's a marker put up between his mother and father that commemorates the fact that he was served in World War II and was killed in action, and that he was buried in Holland. That's kind of the story that we had up until the summer. What we now know is that a couple of days after the battle, the local Dutch citizenry gathered the bodies of the fallen and buried them in a local cemetery. The Army then, in 1946, went and exhumed those bodies and moved them to, at that time it was called Neuville. It's now called the Ardennes American Cemetery in Belgium. There was no identification on my uncle. And so he went into a grave that was just marked with a number as an unknown soldier, and has been there, for again 70 some odd years.
Any family members of soldiers who have been killed in any conflict were encouraged to submit their DNA samples, because if they didn't help to identify your person that you lost, they might help to eliminate some other person or to help to resolve some other issue related to another soldier. So we had all submitted DNA samples in February of 2016.
Every year we hold a family reunion, and this year it was on the 17th of June. And on Friday, we were getting ready to go out to the meeting place, and I got a phone call, and I just happened to look at my iPhone, and it said it was coming from Fort Knox. And so I thought that was kind of strange, but I had actually served at Fort Knox myself, and so I took the call. And it was basically this man who works for the Army telling me that as of June the 15th, positive identification was made and that Garland had been found. I would like to welcome everyone. This is the final interment of the remains of Sergeant Garland W. Collier. Today is a culmination of a long process that fulfills our military's promise to leave no man behind. For the past 78 years, the extended Collier family has known with certainty that Garland was killed in action in the Battle of Ophausen. Yet the disposition of his remains were never confirmed. There was fear that his body had been washed out to sea. On June the 15th of this year, I was informed that he had been identified. Today brings closure to the extended Collier family. Garland has always held a position of honor in our family. He is a true American hero.